In today's business landscape, customers demand the highest standard, and companies that fail to meet those standards risk falling behind and losing business. Welcome to Nexus Consultancy. We have dedicated over 15 years in helping businesses to implement ISO management systems for improved quality, compliance, operational excellence, and customer satisfaction. Our company's purpose is simple, which is to empower business and people. Our team of experts work closely with our customers to access their needs and create customized solutions that meet their specific requirements. We conduct thorough audits and evaluations to identify areas for improvement and help our customers implement changes that drive success. Our consultants have extensive experience and serve over 2,000 customers, and we stay up to date with the latest industry trends and best practices. Whether you're a small business just starting out or a large corporation looking to improve your operations, Nexus Consultancy is here to help you optimize your operations, increase profits, and achieve your business goals.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. Before I start, I just want to do a quick sound check. If you can hear my voice loud and clear, can you please type in the chat room, yes? All right, thank you for your response. All right. My name is Danielle. I'm from Nexus Consultancy, and I'm your speaker today. And what we do in Nexus Consultancy is we help business leaders and their team growing their business through the implementation of ISO management system, including food safety management system. And my passion has been in the food industry, helping companies and their team implementing their food safety management system and achieve their food safety goals. So today we're going to talk about this topic, GMP-compliant facility design. That means simply how to design or improve your workspace so it supports good manufacturing practices, keeping things clean, safe, and also ready for audits. So whether you are building a new place or fixing up your current one, I hope today's session will give you some useful tips and ideas that you can apply right away. And just a quick look on what are we going to cover today. So section 1, we're going to go through the introduction. I will share a bit what is GMP and also why designing your facility the right way that comply with the GMP, it is important for product safety and compliance. And then after that, we'll move on to section 2, which is the facility design and layout for GMP compliance. So in this part, I will share with you the relevant guidance document for facility design that meet the GMP requirements. And finally, in section 3, once the premises is set up, how do we prevent cross-contamination and hygiene control? So these are the 3 topics that we're going to cover today. So at the end of the webinar, we'll have a Q&A session. However, if you already have some questions that you want to ask along the way, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box. So I would answer them from time to time if I'm able to. If not, I will answer them at the end of the Q&A session. Okay, so let's get started with introduction. So first thing first, what is GMP? So maybe a lot of you already know, yeah? GMP is an internationally recognized guidelines which we use to ensure products are consistently produced and controlled according to quality standards. And how do we do that is we will need to set the requirements and expectations for the facility design, look into the equipment criteria, how do we control personnel in terms of the hygiene, and also control the operation processes. So which means it basically cover everything that will affect your product safety and also quality. And GMP compared to ISO or HACCP system, GMP guideline basically focus on preventing contamination, prevention of mix-ups and also deviations and also errors in the production environment. So through that, we can ensure that the products that we produce in that GMP compliant environment are actually safe, pure, and also effective, whether it is for food industry, for cosmetic, or for traditional medicines and health supplements. And in fact, in many countries, GMP is the legal requirement that a lot of food manufacturers and also cosmetic, traditional medicine and health supplement industry, they need to comply. So may I know that how many of you, your current factory are already GMP certified? If yes, can you please type GMP in the chat box? Okay, yeah, so a lot of you already GMP certified. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so I hope today's session will also give you some insights how to improve if there's a need to improve your current GMP. What about anyone that your current factory is not yet GMP certified, or maybe you're looking to designing your factory right now? You can type no in the chat box. Ivani, okay, all right. Anyone else? Okay, so if you are looking to design your factory and you haven't done your renovation yet, then today's webinar, I will actually share some of the basic requirements that you need to look into. All right, so let's get started with the standard that we use for GMP. So on your left-hand side, you will see this book. Okay, let me open this. Okay, this is a technical spec, ISO technical spec 22002 Part 1. It is a prerequisite program for food safety. So some of you may implement ISO 22000 food safety management system in your company. You would know that this is a GMP guidance document that you need to use for ISO 22000. And on the right-hand side is the Malaysia Standard 1514. This is the GMP guidance document for food manufacturing. When you implement Malaysia Standard 1480 HACCP system, then you're going to use this blue color book. So it depending on which system you're doing, you need to refer to the correct guidance document. And for today's topic, the requirement that I'm going to share with you is basically coming from these two books. And I also add in some industrial best practices when it comes to design your GMP premises. So don't forget, as a food manufacturer in Malaysia, besides if you're implementing any ISO system or HACCP, you need to comply with their requirement. But at the same time, you also need to comply with the Food Act and regulations. So related to GMP requirements, it is specifically mentioned in these two regulations, which is the Food Hygiene Regulations 2009 and also the Food Regulations 1985. Right? So for food hygiene regulations, basically it describe the hygiene requirements for your premises, including you need to have a food safety assurance program and also traceability system. And all food premises, we will need to comply with this requirement and also register with Ministry of Health. So food regulation is basically talk about the standards and labeling requirements for the foods that you produce in your factory. Okay, so if we zoom into the guidance document, the two GMP book that I showed you just now, these are the clauses that is relevant to facility design. So if you are looking to renovate your current, your new facility, these are the clauses that you need to study and understand what is the requirement. So for ISO Technical Spec 22002 Part 1, the requirement for good facility design is defined in these clause 4, 5, 6, and 7, which is the construction and layout of buildings. And 5 is talking about the layout of premises and workspace. And don't forget to look into your utilities, which is air, water, and energy. And also number 7, waste disposal. That's right. So when you design your plant, you also need to think about, how do I effectively dispose waste from processing area to the main dumping area? And then as for the Malaysia Standard 1514, the requirement for facility design is described in Design and Facility Clause 4 under the following clauses. So you can compare, it's actually quite similar. All right, so this is a GMP requirement on facility design for food. Let's move on to cosmetic GMP. So if you are the manufacturer of cosmetic in Malaysia, you are required to comply with this ASEAN Cosmetic Guideline on your left-hand side. Okay, so I didn't show you the full guideline lah, I just show you the GMP part in the guideline. So the GMP requirement for cosmetic, it is stated in Annex 1, Part 11 in the ASEAN Cosmetic Guideline. So you need to refer to this one in order to implement your GMP, including designing your facility. And some of you may heard of this ISO standard, ISO 22716. Okay, it is an ISO standard for cosmetic as well, for GMP. And some of my clients are actually implementing ISO 22716 to have international recognition on their cosmetic GMP. But in Malaysia, the mandatory requirement to comply is the ASEAN Cosmetic Guideline, right? So according to the control of cosmetic product in Malaysia, it is basically regulated, governed by this department, NPRA, National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency, under these regulations, Control of Drugs and Cosmetic Regulations 1984. And if you are a cosmetic manufacturer in Malaysia, you would know that all cosmetic products need to be notified to NPRA according to the regulations. Okay, and also comply with the ASEAN Cosmetic Guidelines on GMP. So this is not only for a manufacturer that you need to comply with GMP. If you are doing trading, sale and importation of cosmetic product, you shall comply with the ASEAN Cosmetic Guideline on GMP as well. Okay, so this is on cosmetic. So next is on traditional medicines and health supplements, GMP. So this is the guidance document that we refer for the GMP implementation, and NPRA use them to audit you as well. So in order to get this book, you may wonder, where do I get them? You can download them for free in the on the NPRA website. Okay. All right. So for traditional medicine and health supplement, it is same thing, also regulated by National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency, NPRA, and control under the same regulations as well. Okay, so let's take a look on which part of the GMP content talk about facility design for cosmetic and also traditional medicine and health supplement. So if you are referring to the Annex 1 Part 11 guidelines for cosmetic GMP, you need to look at clause number 3, premises, and 4, equipment. All right. And then for traditional medicine and health supplement, it is mainly described in clause number 3, premises and equipment. And you can see here, they cover a lot of things. So basically for premises, we need to look at your location and design, production areas, non-production areas such as storage areas, quality control areas, cleaning and sanitation of premises. So they actually have a topic for that, and also equipment. Okay, so we have roughly gone through the cross overview for all these 3 guidance documents, right? Let's have a comparison among them. Okay, so for food industry, if you are manufacturing food, so in order to implement GMP, you will be referring to these 2 books, ISO Technical Spec 22002 Part 1, if you are implementing ISO 22000 system. But if not, if you are doing Malaysia Standard HACCP, then you will be referring to this book for GMP, Malaysia Standard 1514. And the primary focus for this food GMP is, of course, they focus on food safety and then how to prevent cross-contamination. And also they talk about hygiene control in overall. Okay, so for cosmetic, if you are a cosmetic manufacturer, these are the GMP guidelines that you refer to, Annex 1, Part 11, Guidelines for Cosmetic GMP. And their primary focus slightly different from food. They will be focusing on material and product quality and consistency, okay? And also talk about contamination control and consumer safety. All right, so this is about more focus on the on top of safety, product safety and quality, but they also talk about the consistency of the product quality. So for traditional medicine and health supplement, you'll be using the guidelines on GMP for this particular product, and their focus is also on material and product quality and consistency. And one thing that is important is active ingredient stability, contamination control, and also consumer safety and efficacy. Okay, so that is the comparison between these 3 different standards. All right, so next I'm going to take you through the top 4 challenges or pitfalls when it comes to facility design and how do we avoid them. So this mistake might seem smaller at the beginning, but they can cause big problem later if we don't fix them. So like for example, you may fail your audit or having hygiene issue. So I will show you what are these mistakes and how can you avoid them. All right. Okay. So the first pitfall when it comes to design your facility is often we may see some layout, they have poor layout flow and in terms of workflow design. Okay, so this happens when the movement of people, materials, or products are not planned properly and then leading to confusions and contamination risks. And then the second pitfall is inadequate segregation of high risk and low risk area. So let's understand what is high risk and low risk first. So high risk areas are where you produce the product and the product is actually open and exposed to the environment. So process like mixing, cooking, your primary packing process, the material is not fully sealed yet, right? So this is considered the high risk area. So these areas need to be extra clean. So for low risk areas, basically product are fully sealed already or material are fully contained. So places, low risk places such as example, raw material storage, your outer packaging areas such as cartoning area where contamination risk is lower. So the problem is if we don't properly segregate this high risk and low risk zone, it will increase the risk of cross-contamination. Okay, so the third pitfall in facility design is using inappropriate construction material selection. So using materials that are hard to clean, not easy to clean, and also is not sustainable, it will not last, your production environment can actually cause hygiene problems later. Okay, and then number 4 pitfall is poor airflow and ventilation control. So the bad airflow design can cause the flow of the air flowing from dirty area to clean area, hence cross-contamination happen. So these are the 4 common pitfalls that we observe throughout our project experience with some of the factory. So I'm going to run a poll right now to ask you which of these pitfall is actually most resonate with you, okay, in your current facility, or you think that you may have this problem if you don't have a current GMP facility. So I already launched a poll. Okay, please answer them. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. It's okay if you haven't answered, you can answer in the chat as well. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, just type the number. Okay. So you should see the result, the poll result. So majority of you, I think it's quite similar, yeah. We have 30% saying none of the above. Oh, that's good. All right. And then 28% is inadequate segregation of high risk and low risk area. And then 25% of you says that it's poor facility layout and workflow design. All right. So very minimum says that it's inappropriate material selection and also poor airflow and ventilation control. Okay, I'm curious, for those that mention none of the above, would you mind to type what is your worries about when it comes to facility design in your chat box, if there's any? Yeah. All right. Thank you for your participations. Let's move on. Okay, so let's move on how do we avoid all these pitfalls. So for pitfall number 1, poor facility layout and workflow design. So what we can do is we need to implement a logical workflow. So when we design the factory, we need to start asking ourselves, where would I put my raw material and packaging material store? And then how does it flow into my processing area? So we need to have a idea first, where are you going to locate it in your big space or big factory, right? And then flow into the processing. And then once the product is produced and packaged, we would need to bring them out and store it in the finished product storage. So how do you bring out them and then to the dispatch area? So we need to implement a logical workflow. So usually the logical workflow, what we recommend is the one-way flow or unidirectional flow, which will help you to prevent cross-contamination. And then use zoning principle, separate high risk, example, open product handling area from low risk area. So for pitfall number 2, inadequate segregation of high risk and low risk area. So first of all, the reason why it is not properly segregated is probably the definition of high risk and low risk area in your company or in your system is not properly defined. So first thing first, you define what are considered a high risk area and what are considered low risk. Then you separate them, come up with the list. And then after that, look at your current layout, or when you design a new layout, how do I separate the high risk and low risk? Do I put a physical barrier or what? So you must have designated area that falls under high risk and what other areas falls under low risk first. And then after that, decide how to separate them. So usually we recommend using physical barrier because that is the best way to segregate them. Like for example, walls, partitions, airlocks to separate high and low risk zone. So some of the questions that I always get from my clients is that, okay, how tall should be the wall, right? When I have this physical barrier. So I would say if your separation is to separate high risk and low risk area, your wall will need to come to the ceiling lah. Okay, go all the way up to the ceiling, because it doesn't make sense that if you only cover maybe 5 feet or 6 feet, there are still certain gap, right? Then how do you control the airflow from flowing from the dirty area to the clean area? You can't do that, right? So the physical barrier to separate these two different risk zones must be up to the ceiling. Okay, and then after you separated, have a dedicated air handling for different zone to prevent airborne contamination. So for pitfall number 3, inappropriate material selections. So if you don't have the sufficient information on what kind of material should I use, you can always talk to somebody like us. You can Google about it, or you can talk to your construction suppliers. But remember to choose suppliers that know how to build a GMP-compliant facility. Then they'll be able to share with you the materials that are suitable for your factory. So basically, walls and ceiling, we need to use smooth, non-porous washable materials such as stainless steel epoxy-coated surfaces. And then floor need to be slip resistant, non-absorbent, edges must be cove, and then remember to have proper drainage system in your processing room if that is a wet processing room. And then for equipment, use food grade equipment, for example, stainless steel food grade, and then corrosion resistant and easy to clean material. And then lastly, on poor airflow and ventilation control. So use the HVAC system with HEPA filtrations for clean areas. So disclaimer, this one is not a compulsory requirement for food or for traditional health supplement or for cosmetic, depending on what type of product you're producing. If you're producing sterilized product, highly prone to bacterial contamination, of course, this will be recommended because it will filter away the bacteria, right? So if you have a proper HVAC system that can control positive pressure and negative pressure, that will be the best, because then you can set positive pressure in clean area to prevent the air from to flow from the dirty area to the clean area by setting different pressures. All right. But again, disclaimer, this is not compulsory in food. However, do take note in Malaysia Standard 1514, they do mention that you need to prevent that. So my question is, if you don't have this setting, how do you prevent the air from flowing from dirty area to clean area? Okay, and once you have the HVAC system, you also need to have a regular air quality monitoring and maintenance. Okay, so that is section 1 on introductions. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in your chat box. I will answer them along the way or later at the Q&A session. Okay, so let's zoom into section 2, where I'm going to go through the details of what is the requirement in terms of facility design that meet the GMP compliance. So let's take a look on the food. So just now I showed you this slide. GMP requirement for food in terms of facility design are described in these clauses. And for cosmetic and traditional medicine health supplements is in these 2 different books. And what are the similarity from all these 3 different guidance or 4 guidance documents is that everything talk about how do you design a premises that basically prevent you from getting the cross-contamination. So I'm going to combine all 3 to give you the explanation on the requirement itself, and I will highlight if there's any differences between these different products while I going through the requirement later. All right. So first thing first, how do we select the site? So before you start renovation, you need to choose the site first. So these are the three factors that you need to consider when selecting your site. So first is take a look on the impact on locations on contamination risk. So if you can choose the locations that will have minimal contamination risk, your life will become easier later. Okay, so first consideration, look at the site locations, site surroundings, any cross-contamination risk or not. Is it high in dust, pollution, or pest? All right. And then factor number 2 is you need to look at mitigation strategies for external contamination risk. So let's say you already have a location and you can choose other locations already. You have to use that location, and however you observe some risk of, dust contamination or pest issues at the surrounding area, and what do you do? So you need to come up with mitigation strategies for this external contamination risk. All right. So this may include, you can put up physical barrier like perimeter walls, sealed windows, dedicated air filtration system, and buffer zones around the high-risk areas to separate this external contamination from your processing area. Okay, and the third factor to consider when you're choosing a site is whether that location can get the relevant regulatory approval or not. So for example, some of you may choose a shop lot area or industrial lot area. My advice is that you will need to get advice from your local authority whether you can get the relevant license with that area, because they will definitely look at the suitability of the area, whether you are doing food manufacturing, cosmetic, traditional medicine, or health supplement. So if you are doing manufacturing, you need to declare to them that you are doing processing and manufacturing, and you can check before you log in the site or rent the area with the local authority whether you can get the manufacturing license successfully. If not, it will create problem later during the audit. Okay, so that is number 1, site selection. Okay, so once you selected the site, then we need to go into the location and see, so how do I design the location, right? So in food production, GMP facility, you need to have a proper size. Okay, and then the design is properly done so that it won't cause any cross-contamination. So you need to look into controlling the access points, both for people and also material. Okay, how does people and material enter the production? And because this is critical to minimize the risk of contamination. And then site boundaries should be clearly defined as well. Sensitive areas such as lab, it must be separated from the production zone. And lastly, if you are using bulk material, okay, bulk material receiving line should be clearly identified and secure, because this can be vulnerable points if not properly managed. All right, so that is the general requirement for food location. For traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic is actually similar. Okay, similar requirement as you can see from here. So they also talk about the lab must be separated from production except for IPQC room. So IPQC room is in-process QC room. So it is the traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic requirement that we must have this IPQC room inside the production area, because the function is to have a QC test for your WIP product, and this room must be located inside the production. So other than that, all other lab must be separated from production area. Okay, like for example, your microbe lab or finished product testing lab or your R&D lab. And do remember the difference between the layout design from food is that traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic layout design must be approved by MPRA before you start renovation. Okay, before you start renovation, there's a process for that, for MPRA to evaluate and then to approve your layout. Okay, all right. So next, let's take a look on premises and rooms. Let's move into the interior design. So when designing internal spaces in the food facility, so the layouts must support operational efficiency and hygiene. So areas should be able to permit easy cleaning, okay, and then allow unobstructed movement. So how you place the equipment is also important. Okay, so the space between the equipment and wall must be sufficient enough to enable cleaning and maintenance, and also pest control activity. And then again, lab must be separated from production, especially microbe lab. Okay, so these are the interior design for the food. So later I will show you some picture. To see picture, it's easier for you to know what kind of material is suitable to use to build the wall, the floor, and so on. Okay, so for interior design of traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic, the difference between food is that, do take note on this, you must have a separate facility for different product. Different product means that, let's say in your company, you have food, you also produce cosmetic, all right, in the same factory. So your same factory, the manufacturing facility for food and cosmetic must be fully separated. So when I say fully separated, it means that basically all facility is separated. Starting from your raw material store, packaging material store must be separated between food store and also cosmetic store. And then to enter your production area, changing room must be separated as well for food and also cosmetic production. And then the finished product store need to be separated as well for food and cosmetic. So that is the meaning of separate facility. All right. So maybe you don't have these situations. Maybe your scenario is you have health supplement. You also produce traditional medicine. So according to the MPRA definition, these two are different products. So you need to have separated facility for traditional medicine and also another facility for health supplement. All right. So they do have exceptional case where they allow you to have the same facility for traditional medicine and health supplement, but you need to get their approval first. You need to apply and get their approval. Okay, so that is the only difference from the main difference from food. Yeah. So the rest is similar. All the surfaces must permit easy cleaning and then have a logical flow. Okay, all right. So next, I'm going to show you some pictures, easy for you to know that what sort of material is suitable to use for constructions. Okay, so for internal structures and fittings, doors. So these are the examples that I curate for you. You can install doors like this. These are made from either aluminium or PU panel. So if you are having a clean room set up, usually you will see this kind of door. All right. So auditor oftentimes what they look at is the door must permit easy cleaning. So you cannot use wood door or any door that, the paint peel off or it can get rusty over time. All right. And so this kind of door is suitable. And also they will look at, is there any gap between the door and the floor or between the door and the wall? So it must be properly frame so that there is minimal gap. So you can also use this kind of shutter door inside the GMP clean room itself. I've seen some of the factory where they need to move in and out big size of material from room to room. So you can use this kind of shutter as well. Okay, so next I'm going to show you some windows. So this is an example of good design of window, double layer glasses. And what you can see is that on the outer layer of the window, there's no 90-degree edges because if you have 90 degrees edges, usually there is a window frame, it will collect dust. So if you can have some design like this, all right, if not, then you have to implement proper cleaning SOP to clean your window frame. Okay, and remember the glass, you need to use tempered glass or laminated glass. Okay, and for floor, okay, basically floor need to be seamless and non-porous, and then install floor that is durable and impact resistant. So for example, you will know that this area is going to be heavy traffic or just human traffic. So you need to understand your process before you actually talk to your flooring supplier, because if you install something that cannot withstand your movement, then the floor will basically crack after a few times used. Then you have to spend a lot of time and effort to actually repair them. All right. And during audit, one single crack or hole on the floor, the auditor will give you as a comment or NC. Okay. And then the floor must be chemical resistant, able to resist disinfectants because you're going to do cleaning, right? On the floor, cleaning agents, and easy to clean. So one of the main principle easy to clean is that you must have curved skirting. Okay. So the rounded edges between the wall and also the floor. So example of suitable material that you can use for flooring is epoxy, vinyl, PU flooring. And this is for inside the interior design of your processing area. If you're talking about warehouse, Cemented floor is recommended, but if you have budget to do this kind of flooring, it's even better because it permits easy cleaning. Okay, so next I'm going to take a look on drainage. So you only install drainage system in the processing room when needed. When needed means that if you have wet processing in that room or it's a washing room, there will be a lot of water discharge, then you need to have a proper drainage system design. Okay, so basically hygienic drain design means that you use stainless steel surface like this, and then the slope must be properly designed so the water will be discharged properly. And then you can also install trap and seal drains, okay, and prevent backflow from the sewage system into the clean area. And then whatever drain that you install, right, they must be able to clean. So if you can dismantle certain parts for cleaning easily, that would be the best lah. So we don't want to install some things that is very difficult to clean, and then it will give you a problem later. Okay, and do take note on different risk areas as well. So if your production area, you have a segregation of high risk, medium risk, or low risk area, then avoid connecting the same drainage systems from one risk zone to another risk zone, okay? Because we want to prevent cross-contamination. Okay, and the drain must be covered as well. Okay, so next is changing room. So changing room basically act as a barrier between the outside and production area. So when we want to enter production area, we cannot just open the production door and enter directly. It usually will need to go through a changing room. So it should flow from clean to dirty flow. And then, so basically staff, what they do is they enter, they clean themselves, they change, and then they enter the production area. So some of the factory where they have different type of product or different type of risk zone, like high risk or low risk, they will have a separate changing room for each risk zones, okay, to prevent cross-contamination. And when you design your changing room, the changing room must be big enough to fit the number of people that is going to enter the changing room and work in the production side. So it cannot be too small. So must be big enough, because in the changing room itself, you need to put a hand washing sink. Sometimes not just one, sometimes multiple sinks, depending on number of workers that you have. And then the PPE storage. Okay, you can put a shelf like this, cabinet like this to put your PPE. Okay, the gowns, the gloves, the hairnets item, and then lockers for personal items, rubbish bins, and then with clear signage and instructions. So do design your changing room to be sufficient space so you can put all these things inside. And usually, not really seen from this picture, but usually you will have like the crossover bench in the changing room to separate the clean and dirty zone. All right. Okay, so next I'm going to take a look on quality and ventilation. So for air quality and ventilation for food, you can actually install any aircon system, either centralized aircon system or split unit. It is acceptable so far. For traditional medicine and health supplement and also cosmetic, we always advise our client to go with a centralized aircon system, because that is the requirement that you need to set different pressure, air pressure between rooms to avoid cross-contamination via the air. Okay, so make sure that air does not flow from contaminated areas to clean areas. And then lighting must be covered and with sufficient intensity. And when you cover, remember to cover it with shatterproof cover. So for the toilet, so don't forget your toilet. So toilet must be located away from processing area. So usually you put outside the processing area, and it must have adequate number to support the number of the workers that you have and easily accessible. And then maintain good repair at all times. So if let's say auditor, they do check toilet as well, they go into the toilet, the door cannot be shut properly or the toilet cannot be flushed properly, then it will end up as a comment or NC in your audit report. Okay, so do install a self-closing doors, and it helps to prevent cross-contamination as well, and have clear and proper signs, the toilet signs. All right. Okay, so next is waste disposal. So earlier on, I said that you also need to look into how do you dispose of waste effectively from inside a processing area to the external dumping area when you design your factory. So the waste must be properly segregated from processing area. So we all know that, okay, we need to dispose the waste out from the processing area on the daily basis, right? And then you bring it out and then dump it at the main dumping area. So when you design your GMP room, you need to know, how do I bring out this waste? Because sometimes you need to bring out the waste in between processing time, not only at the end of the processing. All right. So majority, maybe some of you went through a certain pathway, or you put it at a certain locations at the end of production area, the cleaner come and collect, or some they will just bring out through changing room. So ask yourself this question, whether it's proper or not. Okay, and depending on how frequent you throw the waste as well. So the waste disposal area, if you design in your factory, the main dumping area need to be covered as well. Yeah. So if you build a waste room, the room must have proper door to cover it. If you don't have a room, it's fine. You can put a big container. So the big waste container must have cover as well. Okay, so for water supplies is important at the renovation stage as well. Before you start renovation, you also think about what kind of water supply that you need to use. So for food, there's no specific requirement as long as it's potable water. So usually we'll treat the water we're using pipe water, and then you'll put certain kind of filter to filter the water for food manufacturing. And then for traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic, do take note. Usually we'll recommend you to use RO, reverse osmosis water, or distilled water only, because this is the MPRA requirement. Okay, and also do take note, this RO and distilled water is not only used for processing purpose, but if you have a washing room, you need to wash your equipment inside a processing room, and hand washing, you also need to connect it with to the RO and distilled water. That is the MPRA GMP requirement. Okay, so if you want to know what is the meaning of potable water, basically it means clean water. You can refer to the specification specified in Food Regulations 1985. Okay, so next, let's take a look on cleaning facility. So oftentimes we may overlook to put in the washing room, the cleaning facility in your layout design. So don't forget about that. When you design your layout, think about, okay, I run production, I use those equipment, machines, how do I clean them? For example, for bakery manufacturing plant, you will use a lot of trolleys, big trolleys, and then a lot of baking trays, right? If it's a big factory, the number of the trays and the trolley will be a lot. So how do you clean them? Where is the washing area? And then how are you going to dry them? So you need to allocate sufficient space for those cleaning area and also drying area. So remember to have a separate sinks for cleaning hands, raw material, equipment, and also utensils. So meaning if you have hand washing station, it must be separated from equipment washing stations. So do remember, for traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic, only use RO and distilled water. Yeah. Okay. You can also have hot and cold potable water for easy cleaning purposes. Okay, so this is a picture that I show you, example of how to pest-proof your premises. These are some of the good examples. So when you install your piping or perimeter, do take note on the small gap, either on the floor or on the window or on your ventilation fan. You must pest-proof them so that no pest will enter. All right. Okay, so next, let's take a look on this case study. This is for food manufacturing. So what I'm going to do now is I would like you to basically take a moment to take a look on this food manufacturing layout plan and tell me in the chat box what is not right about this layout plan. Okay, you can type your answer in the chat box. What is not right about this layout plan, given the things that you already covered just now? What is not here? What is missing? What is not right? Okay, anyone want to give a try? Okay, toilet inside cooking. Okay, let me take a look. Toilet not away from production area. Yes, thank you. Toilet away from production. Yes, many of you mentioned toilet. Toilet is obvious, yeah? Yes, so besides toilets, there's another thing. So toilet, basically, this one is a no-no. Okay, let's take a look on this. Staff changing room. Is the location okay? Okay, so Yan Yi says that staff changing room, not correct location. That's right. So where should be the correct location? Staff changing room, the door you see, the door is opening here, right, from the warehouse. And then what happened is that staff go in and change, clean already, Then they come out again to the dirty area, warehouse, and then they enter 2-3 stores. So it's a no-no. So actually, if our cooking room and packing room is here, right? The door is here, right? So we actually need to connect the staff changing room to the processing area. So maybe you have another door here to enter the staff changing room. So we change already, we come out and then we enter the production area. Yeah, okay, yeah. So what about warehouse? Yeah, warehouse is a one big space, right? And then I bracket RM, PM, and FG. Is that allowed? So meaning everything put together, is that allowed? No, not allowed. Yeah, yes, not allowed. So we need to have a segregated zone for RM, PM, and FG. It also depends on the storage condition. Okay, all right. So let's take a look on the next one. The second case study, this is for cosmetic manufacturing. Yeah, so do bear in mind the things that I highlight just now for cosmetic is different from food. So what's not right with this layout? So now the staff changing room is okay, right? They enter and then they go out. So tips, take a look on this area. Is that okay? So if you imagine you enter staff changing room and then you have to pass through packing room to enter mixing room to enter weighing room. Is that okay? Yeah, not okay. Not okay. So for food, we actually not recommend as well because you might bring contamination while you're walking through the packing room, right? So especially for traditional medicine and cosmetic, this is a no-no design. Okay, MPRA won't approve it. So what do we need to do is we need to create a corridor. Let's say, for example, so this is staff changing room. So staff, when they enter, they walk through the corridor to access the weighing room, the mixing room, and also the packing room. Yeah, so this is just some idea on to look into when you design for different industries. So same thing lah. For warehouse, RMPM and FG is not acceptable, and in fact, it's more stringent requirement than food. Yeah, because in the layout design, when you submit for MPRA evaluation, you need to show for raw material, PM, and finished good 3 different zones: your quarantine zone, your reject area, and also your approved zone. You need to segregate all these 3 zones for each of this item, RM, PM, and FG. And all this must be separated as well, either with physical barrier or with drawing lines on the floor. Okay, it depending on what item they do accept not physical area barrier as well. Okay, so that is just some simple case study to enhance your understanding on the layout design. Okay, so lastly, let's take a look on cross-contamination and hygiene control. So let's say you already set up your premises, and how do you maintain your premises to prevent cross-contamination and control the hygiene level? So to effectively prevent contamination in a GMP facility, we focus on these 3 principles. So the first one is proper zoning and material flow. So we must clearly separate the areas based on risk. So just now we talk about high risk and low risk, right? So the second principle is the look into the personal hygiene and movement control. And the third one is we must have a regular cleaning program, and then the cleaning must be validated, and you also need to have a maintenance program as well. So let's take a look of them one by one. So proper zoning and material flow. So in terms of proper zoning and material flow, define clear zone. Yeah. So the first zone that you need to define is production and non-production. So productions means that the product will be exposed. You bring in the raw material and then you start the processing them until the finished product is produced. Non-production include the warehouse area, include your lab, include your offices, staff rest area. And then for different zone, you use physical barrier or color-coded floor or signage to separate the zone. And then remember to have unidirectional material flow. Yeah. So when we design the layout, the entry point of the raw material, let's say I enter from here, it will go one way to the other directions until the finished product is produced. That would be the unidirectional material flow. Okay. And then, so when we assess different zone area, let's say from production to non-production area, always remember to have a transition zone or airlock zone, or we call it buffer zone. Okay, don't just open directly the production door and enter from warehouse area, for example. Okay, we must have a transition zone, like put in a changing room. Okay. So this is the example of unidirectional flow, just to demonstrate to you how does it look like. So basically, flow one way. Okay, flow one way. The material flow is orange, and then the personal flow is green color. Okay, so everything is one way, so it's unidirectional. So this will help you to prevent cross-contamination because there's no backflow. Okay, so I would like to introduce to you the concept of this GMP zoning, three zone, black, gray, and white zone. So what are they? Black zone is what we call the non-production zone. So this non-production zone basically don't have any contamination risk because the product is already fully sealed. So this area, example, site office, toilet, workshop, and material store. Okay, so workshop, remember, some of the factory that we go, their maintenance workshop is located inside the processing area, which also poses a risk of cross-contamination. So we always advise them to actually put outside at the black zone, non-production area. Okay, so for gray zone is in between black zone and white zone. So gray zone is considered a protected zone. We call it buffer zone. So this zone has no potential for product exposure because the product in this zone is supposed to be sealed as well, not open yet. Like when you put material in the buffer zone, it shall not be open. Okay, so this area include material entrance or transfer airlock room and changing room. And finally, the white zone. White zone is your controlled zone, which is a production area. This one is the highest level of risk for product exposure because your product will be actually exposed to the environment. So example of this room are sampling room, material discharging, manufacturing, primary packing, and so on. All right. Okay. So how do we flow from black zone to white zone here in terms of material? So material coming from, let's say, outside your supplier send the material, send to the material store. So when the material want to enter the production, they shall go through a material entrance, which is the gray zone. So usually you need to design a buffer room in between the store and also production to transfer the material into the production. Okay, the material buffer zone. And then you enter the production, which is the white zone. So you do your product here. So finished product is done. Then you need to exit, right? You need to transfer out the finished product to the finished product store area, which is go out to the black zone again. So to transfer out, we cannot directly like open packing room door and then transfer to warehouse. Cannot. We must put a gray zone area, which is the buffer room. All right. So let's take a quick look on this. I'm just showing to you what is the concept like when you segregate them according to black, gray, and also white zone. So you can see all the black zone is actually non-production area, the store, the canteen, the offices, and also the toilet. And then the gray zone is the in-between area connecting black to white, which is the buffer room. So we separate buffer room from finished good to material. You can share material and PM buffer room, you can also separate them. Staff changing room is also considered gray, and then the rest is white area. Okay, so this is the concept. Okay, so for second principle to prevent cross-contamination in a GMP facility is you must control personal hygiene and movement. So changing room and hand washing stations must be there so that they need to wash their hands, and then enforce the use of PPE and control the personnel movement, okay, using zone access control. So usually when you have a layout like this, you have a personnel flow layout, right? So train your staff on how to enter properly. Okay, and implement a visitor protocol. So visitor should also follow your rules on how to enter and what PPE to wear, and how do you achieve that? By doing hygiene training and compliance audit as well. So for workers flow, how do they flow from black zone to white zone is a similar concept with material as well. So with workers coming from outside, they will put their things at the locker, and then they will enter the changing room. So the changing room is the buffer zone, okay, the gray area. So they enter, once they change and wash, then they enter the white zone, which is production. So when they want to go out, they go out to the changing room again, which is the buffer zone, and then they go out. Okay, so this process should be consistent consistently implemented. Either they want to go out to have lunch or go out to have a toilet break. They shall go through the same flow. Okay, and then the third way to prevent cross-contamination is have cleaning and also do your cleaning validation and maintenance. Yeah, so do have SOP for cleaning and sanitation for all your equipment, surface, and environmental area. And remember to validate your cleaning method. Okay, validate your cleaning method and have your cleaning logs and records and schedule your maintenance. And do remember to do your environmental monitoring as well, swab tests, okay, to test whether the cleaning is effective or not. Okay, all right. So final thoughts on designing your GMP compliant facility. So if you are in the process of designing a new facility, here are some tips for you. 3 simple steps here. So step number 1, you need to study the requirement first. So study the GMP requirement on layout design. Study your product requirements, like what sort of temperature needed by the product for the storage, and then requirement for the equipment. Measure the size of the equipment that you intend to put inside the room. Okay, then hence you decide the room size. So you need to do accurate site measurements to ensure that all the room that you created is actually can fit all the machines and table and number of people that you want to do. Because the problem is that if you only draw a room, just hand draw without proper site measurement, later you buy a machine, you might not be able to fit in the machine, and then the number of people that you want to put inside the room also may not be able to fit. So do your proper requirement study and then site measurement. And number 2, you draw your layout and then have a team to review. Okay, so maybe you can start an internal team to review that. And then number 3, layout evaluation and approval. So if you are doing traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic, remember your layout must be submitted to MPRA for evaluation and approval before you start renovation. And once you complete renovation, in future, if you want to change any design, you shall resubmit on changes on the design and get approval again before you change the design. So for food, you don't need to submit to any authority, but you can always submit to your internal committee, maybe to your boss or to your QA department or internal layout committee for approval. Okay, and just a quick note, if you are designing food layout and traditional medicine and cosmetic, what are the rooms that you need to have? So you can take a look on this list. So in summary, traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic has more rooms required as compared to food. Basically, for food, you can have one big mixing room, multiple mixing machine, no problem. But for traditional health supplement and cosmetic, you cannot have multiple machine in a single room. So let's say you have 2 mixer, you need to have 2 rooms, each room only 1 mixer. All right, that is the requirement from MPRA. So if you want to negotiate, can I put 2 machines in a room? You need to discuss with the MPRA. But I'm just telling you what is the requirement when you design, for you to consider when you design. All right, so it applies to all rooms. You can only put 1 machines, 1 machines. All right. Okay. So I also prepared this list. What are the designated areas that you need to have for traditional medicine, health supplement, and cosmetic, just in case you need them. So these are the common areas that you will have to have. And then another slide is from this. For food one, there's none. Because for food one, you will need to design according to your needs. What kind of product that you do, then you need. But for these 2 products, they have specific requirements. These are the minimum area that you need to have. Okay, so I will go through your questions later. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. So just to let you guys know that now we have our clean room services where we provide end-to-end clean room project management and also clean room installation and assembly services. So if you are interested to know more about these services, do talk to us. All right, so next I will go to the Q&A session. Okay, so so I will go through the list from the chat box. So Mr. Cheong, right? Cheong Chun Yi, you asked that does this GMP guideline apply to web production as well? No, web production is different. Okay, you need to refer to a different GMP guideline. For today's topic is only for food, traditional medicine, and cosmetic only. Okay, and so another questions is I have questions regarding the material selection for wall. We face issue of paint peeling off at certain area. Can we use concrete wall screed, which is a thin layer of material typically made from cement, sand, and water that is applied to concrete subwall, able to provide smooth surface as well and soft paint peel issue? Yes, but you will have to prove that it is easy to clean. You say that because it's smooth, it's easy to clean it, but you have to prove that all the porous, because they need to be non-porous, all the small little holes are actually sealed. Okay, and you can always do swab tests to test the cleanliness effectiveness. And then Rahana asked that for storing raw material for health supplement and TCM product must be fully segregated as well. Is it okay to say in the storeroom but separate rack? Usually we'll advise it to have a separate room, but if let's say currently you already audited by MBRA and approved by them, and two different shelf is okay with them, then it's okay, because it really depending on officers' acceptability. So usually what we advise our client is to have a separate room, storage room for two different like health supplement one side and traditional one side. Okay, and when we ask, can factory floor being made with tiles, is epoxy floor compulsory? Okay, so factory tile, some auditor accept, but majority of auditor don't accept. So if we are your consultant, we'll advise you not to have. But let's say this factory is already there for 30 years, and then you have been audited by the auditor for a few years, and so far no problem. You can prove that the product has no contamination issue. You can still continue using them. But let's say if you are building a new one, we always recommend not to go for tile, because tile will give you a lot of problem. It will crack, and then the grout area will give you a lot of contamination. Okay, so if you're building new one, no tiles. And then how frequent do we need to send the PPE garment for laundry? Okay, basically daily. Okay, like I always say that daily. Because if you wear it 8 hours, 10 hours a day, I would say that you need to clean it every day. Our recommendation is always daily. Okay, so if you think that daily is impossible for you to implement down due to some reason, then let's say you only clean them maybe every 3 days or once a week, then you will need to justify it with your testing report. Okay, and then can bottled water or production stuff store in changing room? You need to see what is your policy. How do you control them from contamination? So I've seen some company, they put their bottled water store in the changing room, but they have proper instructions. After drinking water, you must wash and things like that. Yes, you can. Okay, and then we only use water filter in our mixing room for mixing process or raw material. Is it sufficient to just have one water filter per production? Are you doing food? If you're doing food, then it shouldn't be a problem if that is the case. But if we are doing cosmetic and traditional medicine, no. You need to have the RO water or district water in the washing room as well, and also the changing room. Okay, and does the GMP guideline apply? Okay, this one answer already. Is it okay? No room for IPQC in production because only visual check. Are you from food again? If you're from food, then no room for IPQC is okay. But if you are traditional medicine and health supplement cosmetic, then cannot. Okay, usually they will need to see IPQC lah. Okay, and then airflow, any suggestion to control humidity? If you use split, you need to store. A portable humidifier, that may help. Okay, and then the cleaning method can be internally validated or must be done by external. Usually, you will need to somehow combine with external testing to validate. If not, how are you going to validate? Because validate means you need to do testing, right? If you can do testing internally, can. Any idea how strict MPI regarding cleaning validation in traditional medicine? How strict? Basically, they want to see your result. You can basically prove that your cleaning is effective. There's no contamination risk. So I do not know how to say how strict, but basically the test report must be there. The validation must be done. Okay, so is it allowed to use same utensil equipment for health supplement and TCM? No. So if from the beginning, you already separate these two facilities. Usually, you have two separate utensil equipment. Unless you already get the approval from MPRA, you share the same facility for health supplement and TCM. Then you can share. Okay? All right? Unless you get the approval from them already. And usually, you share also, they need you to prove cleaning. How do you clean them so that before you switch to other product, they won't have residue? So asking for food factory, can factory floor being made with tiles? Okay, just now I answered you already, huh? So environmental monitoring example, is that mandatory under GMP? Yes, usually yes. Example of environmental monitoring is you can do swab tests on your machine, on your air, and then on your floor, on your drain, on your wall, on your surfaces, all the equipment surfaces. Swab test mean microbe swab test. Okay. So MOH guideline where product must be stored 20 cm off the floor. However, we realize that some of the standard only mention at least 6 inches. Okay, so follow whatever the stringent requirement. If your auditor is MOH, then follow their requirement. If your auditor is not MOH, sometimes we file it's still okay for other auditor lah. So always follow if you can follow the stringent requirement. So is there any difference between requirement for water supply for processing aid as part of the ingredient? Processing aid, does it touch the product? If yes, then it's the same requirement. Okay, if it doesn't come into contact with the product material, then different requirement. So how frequent do we need to do swab tests for clean room? No standard requirement, but you will need to see how's the risk of your product. So need to do a risk assessment. So in ISO FSSC 22000 requirement, you will need to do a risk assessment to determine how frequent. But in general, if your product is a shelf-stable product like room temperature product, usually auditor do accept like every 6 months once or every once a year also can. Okay. Can production area not using epoxy floor, always peeling paint issue? Can. You can opt for other options. And because it's peeling may not be because of epoxy itself, it may be the installation problem or the grade of the epoxy florant is not suitable for your processing. And then for secondary packing area, can this be cleaned with normal floor detergent? Must use food grade as well. As long as you're in the food factory, everything must be food grade. Okay. MOH guideline where product. Okay, this one done already. Is there any different? Okay. All right. I think I've tried to answer all of that. Humidity specs also depends on your product requirements. Yeah. So that one you can Google about it, or you can email me. Then we can have a further discussions on that. All right. So thank you so much for all your participations. And I know the time now is already 3:07. And if I haven't answered your questions, I'm so sorry. But always email me if you have further questions, or you can text us. Okay, we'll reach out to you if you have any questions. All right. And announcement, you can claim your free 30-minute facility design consultation today. So just scan the book. We will be with you to review your design. So let's say you are starting to design, you're not sure the design is okay or not, then we can actually have a look on that during these sessions. Okay, now it's 100% free. Yeah? So do scan the book, yeah, or share with your friend who needs these services. Ask them to scan, even they don't attend today's webinar, also no problem. Share with them, and then we can actually have a look on your layout. Okay, and announcement to make, this is our upcoming next month webinar. It's about OSHA law, OSHA legal shakeout, what is new and next. So this is about the OSHA Amendment 2022 has been effectively implemented. So are you complying with this law? Okay, all factories need to comply with the new amendment. So the date is 22nd May, and you can scan the QR code to register as well. All right, so we'll be sharing the recording of this webinar and also the slide with you. So no worry about where to scan the QR code and stuff like that. All right, and this is my contact. So do contact me and connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions, or you can email me as well. All right, so that's all, and thank you for participations. We hope you gain valuable insight that you can implement in your organization. So until next time, see you. Bye-bye.